China is among the top trading partners of California. After Canada and Mexico, China is in the third place where we export our goods. But in the last few years, there has been allegations about Chinese Communist Party trying to manipulate local elections in California. My guest today is Michelle Steele, former congresswoman who's from California and has served on many committees dealing with China's influence in California, the US, and beyond. Today, she's here to tell us things that we may not know about Chinese Communist Party's influence in California. I'm Siamak Gorami. Welcome to California Insider. Michelle, it's great to have you on. Welcome.
Thank you for inviting me today.
We want to talk to you about the Chinese Communist Party's influence on California and the whole world.
I was in Congress. I was in 5 different committees. Ways and Means, Trade. Think about it. China never really played fair game. And then education. They are going after our research centers and these prominent universities. And then you name it, I'm on Select Committee on China. We hear that so many stories that what China does in the world. And then Executive Commission is a bicameral commission, and human rights violations, it's really awful. And then AI task force, they're just hacking wherever and whatever that they have chances that they're going in. But in California, we have 2 biggest ports in US, LA and Long Beach, right? And 80% of those cranes we bought from China because China's crane is about 3/4 of the price that, compared to other countries like made in Japan or European countries. But we heard that they always ask that those cranes to be in remote area or inside because they put chips on it and they're controlling that they're collecting actually all these data. It's a national security issue. From the cranes that what's coming in, what kind of things going out because they are taking all these like containers.
Wow.
Exactly. So that was really big. So I introduced a couple of bills that, Save Our Port Act, that none of that adversaries that they can come in and they can control our operations. And then I think administration is going to decide to change all those cranes made in other countries because we really cannot be spied.
So they have chips on the cranes that tracks the data, and can it control the crane too?
Mm-hmm. So when they try to cause chaos in all of our ports, yes, they can do it. They are really watching. And then it's not just like private shipping companies coming in, those ships that are coming in. We're talking about our naval ships going in and out too. So it's not just crane. Our actually allies are using their maritime tracking system called lodgings. I found out in 2021 actually about that. And South Korea, Japan, Portugal, Spain, because it was a free maritime tracking system that China was giving out, right? And then they are controlling, and they can actually collect all the data from all these ships coming in and out, what's on it, what time they're coming in, what time they're leaving. And then plus our naval ships are going to South Korea, what day, what time they're getting, what time they are leaving. They are collecting all these data from that lodgings. So introduce a bill that Transportation Secretary has to really report to us exactly that what's going on with our system. We are not using their maritime tracking system, but our allies are using it. So you really watch it very closely, but you really have to advise other countries that stop using Chinese maritime tracking systems. We are having the biggest ports in LA and Long Beach. That's the most dangerous area. And then we have San Diego, we have naval station there that you don't even know what they're collecting. So that's very, very dangerous. Everything has to start from California that we really have to stop.
What about universities? You mentioned that they have influence here in universities.
Universities was the worst one because we have a prominent universities in California called UC Berkeley. It's one of the prominent one. and they received $220 million from China. Right now, that before my Deterrent Act passed, when you receive any money from foreign governments over $250,000, you have to report to a Department of Education. They never done that. And they were bringing their researchers and doing research together. And they brought government officials from CCP, and then they showed around. This is the most dangerous things because, this is from our students, our brain, and then they just invested the money for what? Try to steal everything from our universities. So we asked UC Berkeley why you didn't report. They said, well, we didn't quite build yet, so we were waiting. So my Deterrent Act, actually now that it passed in Congress, and that shows that anything you receive over not $250,000 but over $50,000, you have to report. And then second thing is when you even have coffee with those countries of concern, we're talking about China, Russia, North Korea, Iran, and any of these countries, then you have to report. So we changed the law, but it was not signed by President Biden.
So is that going to come back?
It should come back. I'm no longer there. I hope that Deterrent Act passed really by almost 400 votes. I hope somebody's going to introduce exactly same bill that go through Senate and then President Trump.
So it was
President Trump
a bipartisan effort to
yeah.
get. Can you tell us about this? So 220 million they want to give to Berkeley. What would they get from that?
They can steal our research materials, and something that really the study was done in the United States. That's one of the examples that they try to get into universities and then try to steal whatever it's been built. But it's not just that you can control administration, because when you give so much money that suddenly you are so powerful to these universities. But we saw so many universities, instead of the money is going down to the classrooms, but administration's getting bigger and bigger. So we were working on with Dr. Fox, who was chair, now she's a rules committee chair, that we've been working on it, that we're going to reduce administration size and it's going to go down to the university students so we can study it together. But China, they try to do whatever they can, and education is the most important part. We don't want to brainwash our kids. And we don't want somebody to come in and steal our kids' study and research. Our kids have to be learn how to think and what's right and what's wrong, and they are actually interfering that.
When you guys talked to the university, what were they thinking about this
actually,
amount of money?
It is really interesting because one of the chancellor, I asked the question, next day, she said she's going to come back with the answer, and next day she resigned.
Wow.
They are getting, it's not just China, but Qatar and other countries that they've been actually influencing all of our universities. So instead of we are teaching our kids that how to think and how to be independent, some of the universities, they're brainwashing our kids and they're getting money so much. Berkeley is one of the prominent public schools in California. When you receive that much money from China, you're supposed to report, and the report was not done. So when 2022 Republican took over for Congress, that we were actually asking all these universities, what did you get and why you are doing it? And we're going to make it smaller administration. So we really have to teach our kids independent thinking. Instead of that, somebody has to brainwash our kids. And then most of the money has to go down to the classroom, not administrations that they've been built.
You mentioned Republicans and Democrats. Is the Congress, when you were there, was it unified on this issue?
Universities that China putting money is only for committees when they learn and all from the hearings. So not all of them that know that exactly how much China is coming in to the United States or how much they're putting in in the United States universities, and how much it's not just China, but terrorist countries are pouring money into. And then when they receive money, their endowment funds were getting bigger and bigger. But they're not. These endowment funds supposed to use for the students. Instead of that, they are like how much we have for these universities. Universities are not corporations that they have to make profits. They have to reinvest that to the students. It is really interesting to see that, these universities, that they are actually brainwashing our kids or maybe just puppet of these countries. So not that many members really know exactly that how much China is in the United States, but other continents too.
You have worked in a lot of committees on China. When was it the time that you figured out that this is really something bigger than most people know?
From the first day that we knew, because I'm on so many committees, but it's all related and it goes down to China. Then when I started traveling with Ways and Means for trade issues, that African countries, they are all over in African countries, and they're investing on the infrastructures. And then we went down to Indo-Pacific region, Cambodia, Thailand, and then other countries. China is all over. You go to South America. I didn't go to South American countries, but I heard from the hearings, South America. So poor countries that they cannot pay back to China, who's controlling this infrastructure building, ports, airport, highways, freeways, you name it. China is controlling it. So they are all over, not just United States, but all over the world.
When you mentioned they're controlling, so are they coming and loaning money, or are they building the infrastructure? How are they controlling it?
They're loaning money to build the infrastructure, and they take over, and those ports, they're using it. Actually, they make it that Chinese port, they're bringing their own naval ships there. They are really thinking about how we're going to take over whole world. That's the way they are building it. So infrastructure is one of the most important things. When you control airport, what are you going to do about it?
So by control, they have their own systems, and then they have all the data, and then
they're
they have
bringing their own
people and planes.
wartime, ships and planes, and who knows what they're going to do.
You looked into the human rights aspect of what China is doing inside China to its people, right? And outside too, right?
That's, outside too. Actually, they're policing their own Chinese Americans in the United States too. But at the same time, human rights violations is the worst ones. And especially Uyghur, mostly Muslims, right? So Christians, minority communities. And they put these people, this is what I heard from the actually witnesses. They are putting these people, innocent people, and they separate from children and parents, and then put parents in the jail. Before they put them, they scan your body, and then one day you woke up. If you're lucky, you wake up. If you're not, then who knows that, you get killed, and then one of your organ is missing. And then that's just awful things that you do, these innocent minority communities and some religious communities. And then plus, they put this, when I heard this one, I was totally shocked. They put Chinese police inside the individual families, some of the individual families. And then I heard that this lady was crying that she was sexually abused in front of her husband inside of that house by that place. It's just awful stories that you hear, that these people came to the hearings and they are crying, and some people wearing masks, and then they're covering themselves up because they're so scared their family is still in China, gonna get attacked, or they're gonna go to jail.
And even here, they do that too, right? They come after the Chinese American.
Oh yeah, they're harassing. We call it Chinese police, and just all over, especially those Asian American populated cities like New York, San Francisco. I was so shocked that how awful the things that they try to control. Why they're doing that? They are Americans. They live in this country, but they try to find out that your family still live in China. And then they start pushing those families in China, and they're sending their videotapes that you're doing something wrong, just come back to China. Democratic countries, it should not happen.
And they're doing that to Shen Yun as well. It's a dance show that we are a media sponsor of. And they've been trying to do bomb threats, and they've been trying to cancel the shows. They've even had influence in the media to make the show look bad.
I was at the couple of performances. It's just amazing, beautiful arts. China is doing something wrong. That's why they feel guilty and they don't want anybody to see it. If it's a history of China, then let them go. They're not just doing in United States, but they're doing, I just got a letter from South Korea, and they supposed to have performance in Daegu. Daegu just canceled it because Chinese embassy was actually pressuring them that you have to cancel it. And I guess they didn't hear anything from United States side, so they decided to just cancel it. But it's so sad that you don't see the differences between the art and history versus that they might gonna expose Chinese government that they are doing something wrong. If you do everything right, why you try to stop that? So you have to separate that. But China, CCP doesn't know what's differences. They have to control whole world.
Now, Michelle, when you were in Congress, you really started focusing on this. Did they tell you that might be dangerous for you?
I knew that what I was getting into because my both parents fled from North Korea from communism. I always standing up for democracy of the country. And then somehow we found the lodgings that Chinese maritime tracking system, and then, oh my God, China is doing this, China is doing that. Then when at that time, Speaker Kevin McCarthy appointed me, I'm so grateful to him that he gave me just what I really needed, and actually more. So 4 committees at that time, and then he said, Michelle, I want you to be careful. Somebody is looking at your cell phone when you open your cell phone. So you have to have those screens that nobody really from the sideways they can read. And then you have to have double firewalls for your cell phone. So make sure that nobody can hacking because CCP is going to come after you. So he already gave me the warning for that. We did that. And we want to make sure that nobody can hacking. But you know what? CCP's been doing it. They did for health data last March. We stopped it. Last, I believe it was September, they tried to get it into Treasury with the using for outside services, but they stopped it. For when they built the DeepSeek for AI tools. And I thought President Trump did a great job. We can build the better one. But to do that, less regulations, instead of regulations on any computer or, for those Wi-Fi, the AIs, instead of that, protection. I think government has to do protection. And when you gather all these data, how are you not going to make sure that, China's CCP is going to hacking it? So you really have to protect these data instead of keep giving them regulations not to build, because DeepSeek is about 1/20th or 1/50th of the price that what we are building here. Means that our government is regulating the way too much and controlling it. We're not going to catch up. It's exactly the same as ships too. China is building naval ships for how many? 350 per year. We do 1 or 2. We have to do something about it. Means that at that time, we bring our allies in. Japan, South Korea, they have a great the building facilities that they can build. They have to change the law to build naval ships in other countries. When you fight head-to-head to China, that means that you really have to work with the allies, because Wall Street last year was talking about that South Korea and Japan and United States work together. They can build many, many more naval ships against China, then we can actually build more. So we really have to think about that bigger picture of that what we really have to stand up to China.
Because
that's why your Epoch Times has to come out. I think your job is very, very important. That go out there and let people know that exactly what's going on with China and how much that they try to take over whole world.
So Michelle, when you before you were in Congress, you probably know a little bit about the CCP, like what they're doing, and what was it like to go inside?
I've been known about communism because my both parents fled from North Korea, so they've been talking about it. My grandfather used to own a lumber yard in Sinuiju. It's the west side of North Korea. And during the Korean War, they came down. So when you own lumber yard, communists coming in and they gave you 24 hours. Whatever you can take in one carriage, get out. How are you going to carry all those lumbers, right? So I've been hearing that story. And then I was raised in Japan, and then I saw that North Korea was actually promoting that their country is the heaven, and then come over. A lot of Japanese people actually went that ship and they got on it and they went to North Korea. And when they come back a couple of years later, you see their face is very sad, grim, and then whole family couldn't come. Always have one hostage left in North Korea. They're talking about that, how happy that's heaven, but you can see their expression, that was not heaven, right? So I saw that. And then when I got into Executive Commission on China, that's the way I started. And then on transportation and other committees. But at that point, I said, oh my God, human rights violations. This is really awful things is going on. China supposed not do to Chinese people first, but they are actually doing that. On the top of it, they try to go out and Select Committee on China that Speaker, at that time, Speaker McCarthy actually created. And then I got in, my eyes opened up. And then you see the trade. They've been lying about it and the way they are bringing in. And it's not just like a merchandise that they're bringing in under $800 because they don't have to pay taxes. When those merchandise is coming through the port, you cannot really scan everything coming through. Actually, LA and Long Beach port, a lot of fentanyl, precursor fentanyls coming in. I learned all this in Congress. And China, when they use it inside of China, fentanyl, you have a death sentence. But taking outside of China, making money, they're very loosened up. Their laws very loosened up.
They don't
those
care.
Criminals.
They
don't
are
care.
happy about it, probably.
Then it goes down to south, the Mexico south, and then border. Precursor became fentanyl and coming in. How dangerous that is that actually China is creating. We didn't know that how much is coming from fentanyl, precursor fentanyl was coming in from China until during COVID. You remember they shut down all their pharmaceutical companies, over 90% shut down at that point during the COVID. That's when we found out that most of fentanyls, precursor fentanyl is coming from China.
Because they couldn't send that then.
Exactly. So they couldn't create, their pharmaceutical companies cannot make those precursor.
So before that, we didn't know it's coming from China.
We knew, but not.
Not how much.
Yeah, exactly. Then actually it's much bigger, the world, because we have only one country, I believe it's Chile, only one country had the visa waiver system in South America. They're coming in. These are criminals coming
Chilean
in.
gangs,
Chilean
right? That they
gangs.
come. Yeah, it's Chile, yeah.
They come in, and then they're stealing everything, and they're selling that to the drug cartel, Chinese people. Chinese people are sending that to China and then bring another precursor. Fentanyl is coming in, go to Mexico. Mexico's report to like New York, and then, we are sending you some clothes, but it's not. Actually, fentanyl goes in, but most of the fentanyl is actually coming through the border, that from Mexico to
From
here.
Mexico to U.S.
It's not just like by human beings bringing in, but they do. We have this wall between Mexico and United States, but they use the remote surfboards, and then they can just control it from Mexico side and coming into the beach. Then somebody picking up from our side, so they don't even have to go through the border. So California gets the most fentanyl.
Through the ocean? Is that through the ocean with surfers?
Yeah.
So,
No, it's surfing board.
so it's an
With the
electric
remote.
with the remote. Wow,
Exactly.
interesting. So they pass the border.
When you see it, China is actually creating like a international gangs and creating these bad drugs and creating much more crisis in our country. Much bigger that, we are talking about like ports, we are talking about education, we're talking about for other stuffs, but even drugs too.
Our media newspaper started because they're persecuting Falun Gong. It's like it's about living by truth, compassion, tolerance, and now they have been using some American organizations and media to go after Falun Gong in the U.S.
It's not just the U.S., but it's in other countries too. So they think that they are the bullies of the whole world. That when we feel that it's not right, you are against China. Actually, Falun Gong has nothing to do. They're not against China. It's really interesting to see when you interpret the things and then they try to hide it. You are trying to hide something means that you are not doing the right thing. That's the bottom line for me.
And you grew up in Korea yourself. You're from Korea. Can you tell us how you got involved with getting into Congress here?
It's a long story because my father was a diplomat. So I was born in Korea and I lived until 14. And then I was raised in Japan until I was 19. So I went to college 1 year. And then my father sent me here. So I'm the first one came from my family actually in the United States. I never thought that I'm going to be a politician because I had a very shy personality and I couldn't speak in front of two people. But when my mom joined me, my father passed, so my mom joined me with my two younger sisters. We actually opened up the clothing shop in downtown Los Angeles. And I can even alter men's clothing shop. I can alter, if you need any alteration. I was a salesperson, I was a buyer, and I did alteration, I cleaned, I did everything for that store because my mom didn't speak English. And then few years later, about 4 years after that, my mom said, let's move on to shorter hours because it's 7 days and longer hours. And I was going to Pepperdine in Malibu at that time. So it was a long drive.
So you were working and going to university?
Oh yeah, full time. So my mom said, let's move on to building sandwich shop. It's a shorter hours, Monday through Friday. So we moved. But Board of Equalization at that time, now it's California Tax Agency, they hit my mom that with the taxes, that you used to pay this much sales tax, you didn't pay enough. When you are ready to close down, your inventory goes down, so your sales tax report goes down. They said, nope, you cheated. So my mom, first generation, she didn't speak English, so she had to pay tax plus interest and penalty on the top of it. So few years later, when that seat opened up, I told my husband, I'm running for this seat. My husband, who's been in politics since he was 14, his jaw dropped. He said, no, you don't want to do that. And I said, how many people know Board of Equalization? My husband said, no, I don't even know what they do. I said, that's perfect.
So you tried to talk to them and they didn't, they ignored you guys?
No, you were so scared because when you got the tax agency text you, my mom just paid it. Because she was so scared that, when you got
they must
the letter.
shut you down. And
So I told my husband I'm running. That's the way it started. So I served 2 terms. It's a constitutional office
and
in
did you
California.
win? So
I won by 5 points. I ran against very prominent state senator, but I didn't speak English. And I was nobody. I'm still nobody, but I was nobody at that time. And he thought that this Asian woman who cannot even speak in front of people, has very shy personality and housewife, what happened here? So he was not really working hard. And I went, only 4 members, so each one represented, right now they still represent 9 million people, so 5 different counties. I slept about 2 to 3 hours. I was all over. Have you ever been in El Centro?
Yes.
Do you know how long it takes to get there?
Oh, it's like 4 hours from here.
I went there to speak for 5 minutes, and I came home 3 a.m. I worked really hard and tried to let them know that who I am, that I had a compassion for small business taxpayers, because this is what happened to my mom, and I don't want this to happen. That I don't want government to harass and abuse small business owners. So I won by 5 points, and I served 2 terms. And then I moved on to Orange County supervisor, and then Congress.
How did you manage to get elected? You said you were underdog in that race, right?
You just work hard. And then I actually did a lot of community services. So the first day I did the fundraiser, and I raised over $100,000 in 2006. And then you just have to work really hard, because it's 9 million constituents. You have to let people know. So last year, 2024 election cycle, we did over 220,000 houses. So I was going back and forth to Washington, D.C. and here for every week. And every weekend, I was walking with my volunteers. So you have to let people know who you are. It's unfortunate that out of 340,000 votes that I lost by 600 votes. I worked so hard, and I don't have any regrets. But you really have to work hard, and you have to let your constituents know that you are here to work for you, not just living in D.C. or living in Sacramento or living in other areas. I never lived in Sacramento during that 8 years term.
So you mentioned working hard. Where did you get that from? Is that growing up, or?
I think it's growing up. My mother was a teacher. My father was a teacher and then became a diplomat. I saw both of them working really hard to raise 3 girls. And I really had to work hard, because when people elect you, means that you are representing them, that you have to really listen to what they really need. So I had a lot of meet and greet meetings, and people sometimes, like, you go to the restaurant and somebody stop you, they try to talk about things, and you hear. So when my first term, I was elected, we really need some more sands for my district, because I represented Seal Beach, Huntington Beach, Newport Beach, and Laguna Beach, all the beach cities.
They're losing sand, yeah, that's...
Exactly. So I brought the sands. I had to have meetings with every Congress members who has power to give me sands. So one time I was on the floor, one of the congressmen called, "Oh, my sand lady's passing." But you really have to work hard in DC, hard to deliver here to bring it back. So I think from my parents, I learned that whatever you have, you really have to work hard, because when I went to Japan, I didn't even speak a word of Japanese. I barely knew alphabet. And the next day, I was in the classroom. I didn't have a clue. So
it was in Japanese?
Japanese. So what I did was, we had a test. So I memorized the poem all night. I didn't even know the meanings of that, what it was. So Japanese test, I put my paper down, so I couldn't answer any of the questions. In the back that I wrote what I memorized in one night. My Japanese teacher gave me 44 points. That's the lowest I've ever got in my life. I actually graduated on number 3 in the classroom. So you really have to work hard to show them. And then when I came here, I went to college, and then I took psychology class, but it was just audio test class. So you study, you come back. Of course, I didn't understand anything about those questions. So after first day, I went to the teacher. I said, I know how to read and write. Can you give me the written exam instead of audio because I don't understand what the questions are? He gave me the written exam every time when kids were listening. I aced it. So you really have to work hard when you're moving to one country to another, that when you don't speak languages, and then you really have to start brand new. Actually, I complained about that to my parents, that I know only part of history or custom in Korea, and then part of Japanese culture and history, and then United States when they're talking about something that I just don't understand because I never went through high school here. Then when you grow up, and I'm like, oh my God, I have to be so grateful to my parents that there's not that many people in United States speak more than one. So my husband always asks me that how to spell this vocabulary, and once in a while I have to remind him, Sean, you speak only one. This is my third language. You ask me how to spell it. I am just so proud that I can reach out. And then even communities too, that last election cycle, that my district has so many first generations, about 41% first generations. So what do? I go out to those communities with their outfit. You go to Vietnamese community, you wear Vietnamese outfit. You always have somebody who speaks their language because you try to get into those communities, and I was one of them. You go to like a Philippine community, you're wearing, those Philippine outfits, and you go to Indian community, you wear sari, and Korean, Chinese Americans, you just go out there and then reach out, and they know you are one of them. And that's the way you really communicate with them. And I am just so proud. In that 4 years, I had so much fun. And it was just my lifetime. And I'm just so grateful that I am an American, proud American, that only somebody who has an accent can come this far and then served at the state, served at the county, and served in Congress. I mean, I'm so grateful for my life that I've been in America.
And that's only happens in America, right? Something like this is in some other countries too, but America is really the main.
If it was not in America, if I stayed in Korea, I might be a housewife, just only housewife. I stayed in Japan, yeah, same thing too. Here, when you work hard and you go out there, and then it doesn't really matter for man, woman, or you have a first generation or not, you have opportunity to grow and you can achieve American dream. I just love this country.
Michelle Steele, former Congresswoman, it was great to have you on California Insider.
Thank you for inviting me today. I'm so grateful.
After talking with Michelle, we understand how deep the influence China has inside California, and it's concerning. Let us know what you think of this influence. You can always email me at siamak@californiainsider.com, or you can comment. We always read all of your emails and comments. We'll see you next time.